Hey, Dr. Packle. Today I will discuss the two perspectives. The first one being why the Cherokee should have been removed, and the second one being why they shouldn't have been removed. First, we'll discuss why they should have been removed. Andrew Jackson was highly favorable of the Cherokee Indian removal, as he discusses his thoughts in the second annual address and his letter to the Cherokee tribe. First, in his second annual address, on page 1, he stated, "It will separate the Indians from immediate contact with settlements of whites, free them from the power of the states, enable them to pursue happiness in their own way under their own rude institutions, will retard the progress of decay, which is lessening their numbers, and perhaps cause them gradually under the protection of the government and through the influence of good counsels to cast off their savage habits and become an interesting, civilized, and Christian community." Jackson thought that relocating the Cherokees would protect them from the diseases and the cultural pressures that the whites would bring that would move into the land, as many of the whites that did move in really brought in a lot of diseases from the old world and really did kill a lot of the Indians. So he's kind of like here trying to like look out for them, saying, "Hey, they're going to bring in a lot of diseases that really are going to kill y'all off, and they're going to bring in practices and cultures that is not like y'all's." Basically saying y'all's culture is kind of savage, and we don't want that, and so you're going to have to move west, basically. Um, he's kind of implying here that the Indian removal is basically, it's inevitable, that it's going to happen, and he's protecting them from the foreseeable future. And basically that if they moved, they weren't required to follow the rules and standards of the states and the government that was coming in. That they could have their own government and follow their own rules. Then Andrew Jackson also stated in his letter to the Cherokee tribe on page 1, "Listen to me, therefore, while I tell you that you cannot remain where you are now. Circumstances that cannot be controlled and which are beyond the reach of human laws render it impossible that you can flourish in the midst of a civilized community. You have but one remedy within your reach, and that is to remove to the west and join your countrymen are already established there. And the sooner you do this, the sooner you can commence your career and improvement and prosperity." Jackson basically tells them that staying in their land is no longer an option, and he describes this by saying that it's out of their control, as if it's a fact that they're gonna have to move or follow the laws or traditions of the states of the whites, and that they wouldn't be able to do that because he basically says that they're savage and that they're uncivilized, and that they wouldn't be able to follow the rules of the states, which is why they'd have to move west. He heavily encourages them to move by saying it would be beneficial for their lives and culture. This is another way where Jackson is kind of like trying to be a friend, be like a friend, and kind of look out for them in a way. He's kind of trying to look out for their health a little bit at least with the diseases, and saying, "Hey, you can practice your own cultures and do your thing. You just have to move west." And then General John Wool wrote a letter to the Cherokees that was aggressive, yet he was also trying to look out for their well-being in a way. First, he stated in his letter, "Your fate is decided, and if you do not voluntarily get ready to go by the time fixed in the treaty, you will then be forced from this country by soldiers of the United States." This quote shows where he was pretty aggressive, saying they have no other option, and that they'll be basically forced out, even if they hold out. That United States soldiers would come in and they would basically kick them out and remove them to the west, and there wasn't anything that they could do about it. And then he stated later on in his letter, I have not come among you to oppress you, but to protect you and to see that justice is done. You are guaranteed by the treaty." This is the part of the letter where he tries to kind of persuade them again by looking out for their well-being. Nevertheless, all three of these documents state that the Indian removal is inevitable and that a peaceful removal would work out best for the states and the Cherokees. And both come at him with the friend approach, kind of like looking out for him, telling him that this is going to happen, you can't do anything about it, and we're trying to help you here. That's kind of the way they go at it. Now let's discuss how the Cherokees shouldn't have been removed. The Cherokees made a letter labeled "To the People of the United States," where they made a very heartfelt appeal. In this letter, they discussed the initial trust they had with the government under presidents like George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, who assured them that their lands would remain secure, yet their land was now being taken through legal actions. They also addressed people like Andrew Jackson and General John Wool in this letter by saying, "We are aware that some persons suppose it will be for our advantage to remove beyond the Mississippi. We think otherwise. Our people universally think otherwise." Then they ended this letter by kind of like seeking compassion and justice for their suffering. And then in the document, Memorial Protest of Cherokee Nation, the Cherokee basically spoke out against the Treaty of New Echota. I hope I said that right. Stating on page 1, the delegation appointed by the people to make a treaty have protested against that instrument, the Treaty of New Echota, as deceptive to the world and a fraud upon the Cherokee people. Basically, the Cherokee people argue that it was unfair and that it was signed without their consent, and that they could not resist against the power of the United States. That the United States was had soldiers, and they didn't really have soldiers; they just had themselves, and that they were a really strong power, just trying to take advantage of that, and they couldn't do anything. The Cherokee even described the abuses that they faced in Georgia, such as arrest and violence on their native land. And then the document concluded with the Cherokee people calling for justice and protection of their land. And then the last document, which was a letter from Chief John Ross, the document was very passionate about the mistreatment of the Cherokee Nation. The chief claims that the treaty strips away their possessions, their land, freedoms, and rights. He says that the treaty was unfairly signed by unauthorized people who have no heart. In fact, on page 2 of the document, the Chief John Ross states, "We are overwhelmed, our hearts are sickened, our utterance is paralyzed when we reflect on the condition in which we are placed by the audacious practices of unprincipled men who have managed their stragums with such directivity as to impose the government of the United States in the face of earnest, solemn, and reiterated protestations." Sorry, I mispronounced some words there, but basically the Cherokees, they emphasized that they had adopted many of the U.S. principles here in this document, basically saying that the enforcement of the treaty was oppression against them. The chief used many strong and passionate words in this letter, basically describing their injustice, such as like oppression and suffering of their people. And at the end of this letter, he basically recommended that a group of strong leaders, such as him, should get together and negotiate a treaty that would be fair and overall would protect the Cherokee people. I hope I didn't make this video too long, and I look forward to hearing back from you.